welcome to Basketball Talk Pro. Yes, the last 2 or 3 days ago I asked coaches to send in an answer to a question. The question was, what's the most important thing coaches do? And the response was limited, but the people that did respond really had some good answers. Very insightful, helped me, and I may be a little different, but what I'm going to say includes what they offered to me. And as I said, every one of them had a correct answer, even though everyone was different, but it was very close to the same thing. Well, my thought on that question, and there was a reason I did it, it's a point I want to make to coaches about their role, what they're doing. My thought was this. I think the most important thing we do as coaches is to plan, manage, and direct practices. As I see the things that came in, all of those were items that would be taught and perfected in practice. When you look at it, what do? We get players prepared to play in a game. We do that by what we do in practice. And I don't think that coaches necessarily pay enough attention to that and give it enough importance that what they're doing is to prepare their team, and their practices have to be accordingly. So let's take those three things: planning, managing, and directing, one by one. First of all, the plan for your practice. The number one thing it has to do, if it's planned correctly, is it has to relate to the system, the overall system. So each day you may have different thoughts of what's important for that practice, but the practice still has to relate to what you're doing in the system, what your system is set up to do. And then it takes careful planning. You have to factor in things like the progression of where you're at. Do you need more time or less time? There's phases in your practices as they go along, that some are for learning, some are for preparing, and some are for making automatic, or making them so sound that players don't even think about it. They just do it, and they get very comfortable with it. Managing a practice is an area that I think is overlooked. From what I see, managing a practice is taking care of the logistical things, the environment around your practice. Are you setting up your practices to make it easy for players, that they don't have to go looking for things, they don't have to bring things? I like, and I think every good practice management I've seen, there's a table in the middle of the floor, and there's towels on there, drinking, if they need drinks. I personally put the schedule on that table. Players know it. They come and look at it. A lot of them come, first thing they look at is the schedule. Some coaches are afraid to do that because they think that they know when to take off and when to work hard. Well, that's up to coaches. I mean, coaches, that's your responsibility. They should be working hard all the time. Whether they know what's coming up or not shouldn't make any difference. They just work like they always do. If you have that kind of discipline, with your players. And it's also things like discipline of players. What time do they come for practice? Do you have the right equipment on the floor? Is the clock okay? Do you have somebody to run it? Do you have somebody to take care of all the things that you can't take care of? So that the players and the coaches are free to focus on only one thing. Always have a ball rack there. Players should be shown and taught to bring the balls to that ball rack. That's not a big thing, but it keeps the balls in the right place. We know where they're at. Managing is more important than most coaches give it respect. The last one, direct. Direct the practice. You're the guy. There is no one else as a head coach to lay it on. Everything is up to you. Directing a practice is where you combine the science and the art. There is an art to running a practice. Some coaches just do it better than others. Some coaches don't do it very well at all. But you know what's right to do. If you have applied the science, you know what the truth is and what you should be doing and how and getting better at it. But the art is how you do it and get the players to do it well. Actually, coaches, your success, your failure is right on that practice floor. If you fail, there's only one person to blame, you. You didn't prepare them right. You might say, well, they had better players. Well, that's what we do. We get our team to play better, even though we don't have as good of players. That's our job. Anybody can take and say, I don't have the players, and lose and say, well, that's it. That doesn't take any skill. What takes skill as a coach is to be able to win games even when it looks like you don't have the best talent. So your success or failure is born and dies in that practice floor. You should treat each practice, every one, like it's a masterpiece. Make it a masterpiece. Every one. Become an expert at practicing. Become a giant in practicing. Which brings me to this fact you should know. I've, for a long time, have set up 4 coaches that I don't think there's any doubt about. They are the giants of coaching. Vince Lombardi, Phil Jackson, Dean Smith, and gosh, I can't think of the 4th one, but it'll come to me. So those are the ones that we want to be like. Well, all 4 of those coaches were practice coaches. Some of those coaches, the 4th one, I guess everybody figured it out, John Wooden. All the 4 of those coaches were regarded as high-level practice coaches. 2 of them were not really considered good game coaches. Wooden, for one, and Lombardi for another one. But they were geniuses when it came to running practices. So they didn't need to be good at game time, as good as maybe the guys they're coaching against. But their teams were prepared better to win games. I think that you can be a real good game coach and a poor practice player. I don't think you're going to win a lot of games. But if you're a good practice coach and a poor game coach, I think you can win games. and it's been proven. I think that you need to be involved. This is what I see a lot of it. Coaches are not involved in their practices. Their minds are someplace else. They're not really ready to go hard. They're really not aggressive with their players. They're not enthusiastic about what they're doing. I love what Warren Buffett says about his job, which is, he's one of the richest guys in the world. He invests money in businesses. But he says, and he says it all the time, he said, I love coming to the office in the morning. He said, what could be a better life than, he's got a small office, by the way, even though his firm is very big. He's just happy. He loves what he's doing. It's not work. He's into it. He talks about, here I can sit here with my diet, cherry Coke, and my mixed nuts, and he's happy to be at work. Every day is a happy day for him. That's the way you want to look at practice, and then you're involved. And the last thing, and I harped on this a lot, is watch. Watch carefully. Learn to see what's going on with your players. Don't take it for granted. Concentrate. Watch and correct. Let players know when they're wrong. That doesn't mean you have to be mad about it. They didn't sin. They didn't rob a bank. But they need to be corrected. I don't care how you tell it. And that's the art. The guys who can do that good are special. And but they all do it whenever it's required. Don't let them get sloppy. Don't let them be lazy on what they're doing. But they will reflect off of you. If you're not involved, if you aren't really concentrating, if you aren't really enthused and happy about what you're doing, they know. It's up to you. So that's my justification, I guess, for what I think is the most important thing. I just think that if you can do the practice, the rest falls in line. I mean, one of the coaches from Brooklyn said, he felt his biggest role was to teach players how to succeed, teach them the work involved in being good. And that's true. It's a very big factor. But I think most of that is done in a well-organized, well-directed practice. Now, I have two other things I want to add to that. And by the way, I'm going to put it at the back here. You'll have about 25 seconds to see these listed, so you can write them down if you want. But remember, you can pause it and then write it down. You don't have to hurry. Make sure you get it the way you want it. But the second thing to me is planning, managing, directing games. That's what we do. You can't get around what that's, no matter what the academic people say, what happens in those games, that determines our success or failure and our longevity also. And then you have the test is in the game, the third thing. And that is players are doing what you want them to do. If they aren't, don't ever say, well, the players don't do this, they don't. That's your job. That's your job. If you can't do that, this is the wrong profession. If they're not doing what you want, they're not perfect, we know that, but I'm talking generally. Whether they win or lose, you have done the correct thing. You'll know you know whether they're doing what you want. Maybe the fans don't, maybe even the media doesn't, but you do. And that's your test. That's when you go home at night after the game and you are comfortable with the fact, regardless of the score, win by 20, lose by 20, you are comfortable with the fact that your players are doing what you want them to do. If they're doing that and you're still failing, then it might be that you got to adjust some of your system and some of your practices. But that's your test every night you go out on that floor in a game. Well, that's it. There's about 25 seconds remaining that I list the 3 things that we talked about. Once the music starts, that'll end it. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.